Hey Riblets, it's me, Tom from Target Prime Rib. How we guys doing? I actually let me get to the comments because it'd be nice if I could see who's all commenting. I have my special guest here, George from Goodenough for all. Is that
Good enough for you. Good enough for you
good
at
enough
this
for
time.
you? Okay, sorry about that. And right now, I'm not really seeing too many people. There's not too many people in there, but that changes all the time. Very regularly. So tell us a little bit about yourself, George, and
Okay, yeah. Well,
I mean,
why not? So,
people will start coming on. I promise.
yeah, yeah. So I'm English, as you can tell from my accent, and I live in the southwest of England, in a little town called Bridgewater in the county of Somerset, which you've probably heard of, Thomas, because there is a Bridgewater in New Jersey, I believe,
Yes, there is.
in the county of Somerset. Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, it's quite amusing because many years ago I was actually in New York and I met a guy in a bar and we started talking, and he actually came from Bridgewater in New Jersey. So
Oh, okay. Yeah, I
it
actually
straight
worked in
straight
Bridgewater
yeah
once for a couple times in one of the stores. So that's
yeah. So straight away we had a bit of a crossover there. So that was very nice. Yeah. So Bridgewater in Somerset in England is in the southwest. It's on the M5 motorway M5, which is our equivalent of the interstate or freeway. I'm not sure how you call it over there. And I'm south of Bristol and north of Exeter, halfway between the two. Those are the two nearest cities. London is 180 miles away to the east, and that's about 2.5 hours to Heathrow, which is the airport, and then 3 hours to central London if I drive it like I used to. So that's me. That's where I live. I'm 60 years old now. Just turned 60 last month in September, in fact. So throughout my career, I was in the army as a young man, and then I went into international diplomatic type security, then a bit of low level security, and then into construction. And now I've just been at the age of 60, been able to pick up a small army pension. So I'm giving myself a bit of a work break, living off that, and basically, I've appointed myself as a self-appointed UK ambassador to the USA carnival community, which is why I am here with you tonight. And I've got a lot of friends over in the USA now. As you know, I've got a lot of classmates, and it's been great fun. It really has been. Yeah, so I have a long story of illness in my life. I probably didn't have the best start in life because I was a complete accident as at my birth, because my mother was 41 and was told that she'd had an accident and would never have children again. And along comes I. But because her cervix was closed, I was unable to be born naturally, so I had to have a C-section, which we now know is not the best start in life anyway. She was 41 years old and probably had gestational diabetes. I was born in 1965 when sugar was really sort of taking off in the world. I came out as what they call a macrosomic baby, which meant that I was weighed 9.5 pounds, and any baby born above 8 pounds and 13 ounces is considered to have macrosomia or big baby syndrome, and that often leads to problems in later life. I was an obese child all of my life, all of my childhood, and I had real problems with my sinuses at the ages of about 3 and 4 up until the age of 6, when and I used to get terrible abscesses in my ears. And that was probably a very early manifestation of the fact that I was totally sugar addicted. I was, you know, any sugar, cookies, chocolate, sweets, I was there. You know, the breakfast cereals, which are sugar coated, like the Kellogg's Frosties, add milk and probably add some more sugar as well. So I was always obese, always ill. I had my adenoids out at the age of 6 to try and cure it, grommets in my ears. Yeah, it wasn't a great start in life, to say the least. Unfortunately, my two older brothers were great athletes, and I never was. And so, really, up until the age of 17, I was always obese. And then my brother actually put me on the 5-2 diet. So I would fast for 48, sorry, 60 hours from Sunday evening through to Wednesday morning. And I managed to actually lose. At the time, I managed to lose 28 pounds and got myself in reasonable shape. And then spent the rest of my life trying to outrun a bad diet. So I joined the army and was a soldier for 8 years and managed to keep myself basically fit then. But by the time I left, I was really piling the weight on and really struggling to do the annual fitness test. And then I sort of yo-yo dieted for quite some time after that. I very rarely got below. I know I never actually got below 200 pounds. And then at the age of 40, I retired from the international diplomatic security scheme, and I kind of took my foot off the gas. And eventually, I ballooned to 293 pounds, and at which time I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes as well. I was a heart attack waiting to happen.
Right.
So it was not great. That was the age of 56 and a half. And in fact, that diagnosis came from a blood test which happened on or a general, what they weighed me, they measured me, they took the blood test, and that was on the 1st of March 2022. So when I got called back for the results a few days later, the doctor gave me the bad news. You're a type 2 morbidly obese diabetic. You've got lots of other problems. I had lots of other problems, such as my legs were really painful. I was getting shooting pains in my thighs. She wasn't very helpful. In fact, she was less than helpful, to be perfectly honest with you. I could see that there was a kind of a look of contempt in her eyes when she was dealing with me. Like, it was almost like she was blaming me for being in the mess I got myself into, which I guess is kind of true because I was eating all as a child, all the sugar. In later life, I was eating eating a lot of bread. I'd have a double decker sandwich, so 3 slices of bread with stuff in between it. I was eating loads and loads of pasta, loads and loads of rice. So bread, pasta, and rice, and pizza, and all those things. It never occurred to me. I had no idea that these carbohydrates, which don't taste of sugar, could have the same effect as sugar.
Right.
So I was in a terrible state of ignorance, and I could not understand what was happening to me. I had a theory, but it was wrong, because I was a veteran of Desert Storm, which you guys obviously were there, so you know exactly what Desert Storm was. And I think you guys probably know that we had an awful lot of vaccinations at that time, including the anthrax vaccination. Now, the anthrax vaccination at the time nearly crippled me for about 24 hours. And I thought that the Gulf War syndrome, as it's known, was to do with the vaccinations. And I was showing all the symptoms of Gulf War syndrome: massive weight loss, fatigue, just not feeling very well. So I thought I was suffering from Gulf War syndrome. And I was basically trying to get a diagnosis at the time. But of course, they don't want to give a diagnosis because that would open the door to massive compensation payments. I believe that your veterans over there have a very similar problem. So what I thought was Gulf War syndrome was in fact malnutrition, just from eating pasta, bread, rice and pizza and pies, as well, all the pastry, stuff that would fill me up, because it was a cheap way of getting nutrition, because as we all know, a calorie is a calorie, and it doesn't matter where you get the energy from as long as you get the energy. So the doctor wasn't very helpful. She wrote me a prescription for metformin and I think for statins, though I don't know, because I never ever cashed in those prescriptions. I had them in my hand and I took them from her office. She dismissed me. And then my phone went as I left her office, and it was a nurse from the other side of the clinic where I was at the time. She said, George, come across the other side of the clinic, come and see me. Her name was Nurse Kathy Moran. Her name is Nurse Kathy Moran. And she was a diabetes specialist. She was part of the diabetes team. So she invited me into her office and sat me down and said, okay, George, so you have type 2 diabetes? I said, yes, I do. And she said, right. And she, unlike the doctors, the first question she asked was, what do you eat? So I described my diet to her pretty much as I have just done to you.
Right.
And then that included a lot of what you guys call potato chips, or corn chips, actually. This particular brand that I used to be addicted to, something called hula hoops, which are corn snacks.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, and she said, George, the 4 words that she used were, all carbs are sugar. And I said, what? She said, all carbohydrates, when they enter the bloodstream, turn to glucose. They raise your glucose. She explained it as we all now understand. There's no point in me trying to
No,
uh,
no,
te-
but
to
that's
teach
still
teach our
wow.
audience to suck eggs. And I said, and I was a bit sort of like taken aback. I said, what? But I don't eat sugar. I said, she said, all carbohydrates are sugar. I said, what? Even the ones that don't taste of sugar? Even the ones that, she said, yes. And she eventually got it through to me. And basically it was like a light bulb moment, a light bulb, a comedy light bulb appearing above my head. I suddenly realised what my problem was. Thankfully, I do have the critical thinking ability and the intelligence, I suppose, to actually understand these things. And I thought, it's simple. It's simple. I had heard of the Atkins diet, and that's the first thing
Right.
which jumped into my mind. And so as I left her office, I actually said the last words I spoke to Kathy, the last words I actually saw, because she left that surgery pretty soon after that clinic, pretty soon after that interview. And I said to her, we can do this. And she basically told me to go away and lose a bit of weight. In the National Health Service in England, they recommend you lose 5% of your body weight. That's a good target, apparently, and that will start you on the road. So
Right.
anyway, I went away, and I had no idea of carnivore at this time, but I did know two things. Firstly, the Atkins diet, I knew it was a thing, and secondly, I had seen a television program in about the year 2010. Bear in mind the fact that we're in the year 2022, and it was a cooking program by two excellent blokes, Simon King and Dave Myers. They were known as the Hairy Bikers because they were both motorcycle guys, and they
Okay.
were both chefs. And they'd actually recruited a diabetes specialist called Professor Roy Taylor of Newcastle University in the northeast of England. He's on the internet if anybody wants to look him up. Professor Roy Taylor, same as Stephanie, Taylor.
Right. So just Roy Taylor. Okay.
Yeah, Roy Taylor. And he was able to reverse type 2 diabetes with a low calorie approach. What he would do is he would put people on protein shakes of 800 calories a day for 6 to 8 weeks. They would go back and the diabetes would be gone. Now, fine, okay, I can do that and get rid of diabetes. But as I was researching it, so the algorithm on Google, I wasn't on YouTube at the time, introduced me to the low carb approach because that would kind of superseded Roy Taylor's approach, because it's obvious that basically if you can put yourself into remission with an 800 calorie a day a protein shake approach, what happens when you go back to eating normally?
Right.
You know, so yeah.
That's what I was
So I
just
thought,
thinking.
yeah,
Too. Yeah.
exactly, yeah. So what the hairy bikers were doing, they were actually did a low carb sort of recipe program to try and maintain the remission from diabetes. But there was a lot of low carb bread, that sort of thing. So I thought, right, low carb, that's my way to go, because Kathy had said all carbs are sugar. So I started out eliminating the carbohydrates. I didn't really have a clue what I was doing. I didn't know about YouTube at the time, certainly didn't know about carnivore. I was lucky to be working with a guy on a building site who was a bulldozer driver, and he understood the ketogenic diet. Now, his recommendation was that I count carbohydrates, and I tried to drop below 50 grams of carbohydrates every day. So I started learning to count carbs, but at the time I had no idea about the risks of fiber, of fructose. So I was still eating fruit, but I was making sure I was counting the carbohydrates that I took in every day. So I started going heavily down the egg, ham, all it was a low carb, it was a typical low carb, high fat diet.
Right.
And I made sure, but there was still fruit, there was still lots of vegetables. I did take out the potatoes and all the corn snacks and the potato chips straight away. I took out the bread and the pizza and the rice and the pasta. So I found myself left with like a lot of hard-boiled eggs, a lot of ham, a German product called frikadellen, which was a pork burger basically. But I then discovered way down the line that there was a lot of canola oil, as you guys call it. We call it rapeseed oil over here. Canola oil is a modified rapeseed oil.
Right.
So I was eating wrong, but I was eating better, if you see what I mean.
Mm.
And I started getting some pretty amazing results. I started rapidly losing fat. And I think, if I remember rightly, by August I lost about 56 pounds. And I thought, this is obviously working. I wonder what my bloods will look like now. So I cheekily asked for a sort of out of turn blood test. I said, I really feel that it's worthwhile doing it. And they accommodated me, which was nice. And that happened, I think, on August the 4th of 2022, by which time I lost 56 pounds on low carb. So I went back on August the 4th, got my blood tests, and was told you will have a follow up, a routine follow up phone call on August the 22nd to tell you what the results are. So that was, 16 days away, 2 weeks away. On August the 9th, I got a phone call from my clinic, and it was Sandra, who was the head nurse of the diabetes team. The nurse who was supposed to phone me back was Richard Abrahams, because he was taken over from Kath as my personal diabetes nurse. And she said, I need to speak to you urgently, George. I thought, oh my God, I've done something really bad here. Things have gone, really wrong.
Right.
And I said, should I be worried, son? She said, no. She said, no, you should not be worried. She said, in fact, it's the opposite. She said, I just need to know what you've done. she said, you've reversed type 2 diabetes in 5 months. She said, how? I said, what do you mean? Yeah, how? So what it was is that the diabetes score in this country, and I'll try and match it as best I can to the US of A, any measurement of mmol between 42 and 48 is pre-diabetes. Anything above 48, so 49 upwards, is type 2 diabetes, recognised as such. Now, I was 50, so I was just into the type 2 diabetes range. So I was 6.7%, I think you guys call it. By the time I got to August, 5 months later, and had my blood tests again, I was down to 36 mmol, 6 points below pre-diabetes in British terms, and I believe that translates to 5.4% in your terms. So you will understand that. Everybody here will understand
that's
that.
my goal. So yeah,
Exactly. Yeah. So I was out of type 2 diabetes within 5 months, just going low carb, high fat. So she was absolutely delighted for me, as you can imagine. But so she absolutely congratulated me. Apparently, my triglycerides had dropped right down, because they were dangerously high, but they had dropped right down. I lost 56 pounds. My waistline has started to come down. I was a 44-inch waist back in the March of that year.
Yeah, so was I when I started.
Yeah, exactly. So she was very congratulatory of me. No doctor has spoken to me about type 2 diabetes since. In as much as I did it in spite of them. I made them look stupid. Every nurse I have spoken to since, diabetes nurse, has been nothing but full of praise, full of congratulations. And they have been absolutely wonderful. No doctor would even address me. Why? Because I'm a cured patient. I'm a customer lost, because I never ever cashed in the metformin and the statin prescriptions I was given. I made them look stupid, which they are, and they resent that fact. And the doctors won't talk to me. Nurses, great, we love nurses, but not doctors. So yeah, that was August of 2022. Now, at about this time, I can't remember why, but I discovered YouTube as something other than a music platform, and I started putting in reversing type 2 diabetes, low carb, etc., ketogenic. And the first person to come up with was the late, great, angelic Dr. Sarah Holberg, with her 18 minutes and 6 seconds TEDx talk, I think it was, from rightly.
I know it well, yeah.
Yeah, it's called Reversing Type 2 Diabetes Starts with Ignoring the Guidelines. So she was a rebel, and she actually brought up to my attention the fact that fat has the least effect on spiking insulin. By this time, I was aware that insulin was the problem, not calories or all of that nonsense that we get taught. So I was researching that. Now, so that really sort of gave me the clue about the importance of eating high fat. And then, because I was researching high fat, ketogenic, suddenly Carnivore came to my attention on YouTube in August of 2023. And the first video which came up to my attention, which I watched, and I'll never ever forget this video, was Dr. Ken Berry, that name as usual, and Kelly Hogan. Woman eats only meat for 13 years. I watched it for an hour and I could not believe the transformation in Kelly,
Yeah.
because Kelly was actually late that day. So Dr. Ken Berry gave a real build up to
Yeah.
it for about five,
I,
10
I saw that
minutes.
video. Yeah.
And he said, "Oh, he said you are going to be so shocked by this transform. This woman's eating only meat."
Right.
And I thought, what does that mean? Is she going to be like cancerous? Is she going to be,
Right.
sort of all her teeth falling out? But no, of course, this absolutely stunning young lady appeared
You
on the
saw this
screen.
woman. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And I watched in total disbelief, really, to be perfectly honest. So that was when I knew that carnivore was a thing. So I started researching carnivore. Then Dr. Anthony Chafer was the next one I clearly remember coming up, which was Plants Are Trying to Kill You, which I think all of us have watched here. So, yeah, I then became aware of carnivore in August of 23, but I also then became aware of a guy called Dr. David Unwin over here, who is a reversing type 2 diabetes specialist himself. He's got an amazing story because he was, at the age of 55, had given up on allopathic medicine. He was totally disillusioned with life, was following all the rules of the standard of care, and was ready to retire. He'd made enough money. He felt that he was achieving nothing because he wasn't making a difference. People were getting worse around him, and he was only managing type 2 diabetes with metformin, statins, and everything else. Then one day he had a patient, a lady, who was very familiar with her. He hadn't seen her for 6 months, but she came back in for her type 2 diabetes test. She walked into his surgery, into his office, and he said, "I'm sorry, madam, but I'm not expecting you. Would you kindly leave? I'm expecting somebody else." She said, "Dr. Unwin, this is so-and-so. This is your iron books." And he went, "What's happened?" And she basically said, "I've gone away and I've done my own thing." She said, did you ever take basic biology at school?" She said, "How can you not know that carbohydrates were the problem?" And it took him completely, and she absolutely tore him a new one that day. Basically, doubted his medical qualifications, doubted his intelligence, doubted his, basically, he made him feel guilty about taking money every month,
Right.
but for achieving nothing. But it was a light bulb moment for him. Now he then totally changed his approach. He researched low carb. He is now the leading low carb doctor in the UK. He is head of the public health collaboration. He's about 65, no intention of retiring ever. He and his wife, Jen, who is a mental health person, they are basically now on a mission to reverse type 2 diabetes throughout the country. Interestingly enough, apparently the local health authority congratulated him because they were having to spend £40,000 less, $50,000 less a year on type 2 diabetes medications. That's great for the local authority. It's not so good for the pharmaceutical companies, is it? So so that was a conflict of interest there, definitely. But no, Dr. David Unwin is still going on. So the point I'm trying to make is that in August 23, I discovered Dr. David Unwin. Now he had a low carb approach. He still believed in making like asparagus soup and eating low carb vegetables. Definitely not carnivore, but definitely ketogenic in his approach. So I thought, well, I've done really well so far on the ketogenic approach, and I like my vegetables. I've got no real reason to change my direction. I was still having massive success. Still had IBS, bloating, constipation, and flatulence, but I never associated that at the time with vegetables. By this time, fruit had gone because I'd learned about fructose. But as I progressed in my research, because I've done many thousands of hours of research since March the 1st of 2022, so I continue to progress. And obviously now I discovered YouTube, then the University of YouTube opened up to me, Jason Fung, for example, with fasting. So I started incorporating fasting, and I started to eliminate more and more carbohydrate based foods. So I was trying to get myself down lower and lower and lower on the carbs. But again, I felt no real need to give up totally the vegetables because I used to like my onions and that sort of thing. So for a year, I went gradually more low carb until August of 23. So this is a year on from August of 22 when I discovered Sarah Holberg, Kelly Hogan, Anthony Chafee, and David Unwin. Those four names are quite important. Now, the last week of August of 2023, I made my first friend in the carnivore community, who happened to be USA. Why? Because I am a veteran, as I've explained. I was a veteran of Desert Storm, and I discovered Carnivore Soldier. Larry Allhands down in Jarrell in Texas, very near Austin. He was very, very highly active in the carnivore community at the time, but he was also very active in the veterans health, veterans mental health community, because he used to keep on quoting the figure of 22 former servicemen in the US of A take their lives every day, and he felt that the carnivore diet could quite possibly reverse that trend. So he was out there trying to get veterans to do the carnivore diet to try and heal the mental problems that we have. I include myself in that because I a bit of my life I've missed out. I actually lost a year of my working life to stress and depression, and really I couldn't work for quite some time. I was in the nuclear power industry at the time, so they took the best care of me they could. And when they eventually decided that I could no longer work after 11 months of being on sick, they did let me go, and they gave me a financial cushion, bless them. And then I was able to get back in to work, but I was only functioning, and all I did was, as we discussed earlier, I was a very low end security guard on the minimum wage, working nights, etc., etc., and my weight just went up and up until I hit 293 pounds. So yeah, in August of 23, met Larry, became great friends with Larry. He was a retired chief warrant officer, grade 2, class 2 from the Texas National Guard, having been a full-time sailor on fast attack boat submarines for 8 years in his earlier life. So he was both Navy and then National Guard. So he was very, very keen on all veterans matters. So I'd never given an interview on YouTube at that time, but on September the 10th of 23, I gave him his first veterans interview. He had this mission called Mission Carnivore. That was the name of the program of the interviews that he was doing. So I did episode 1 of Mission Carnivore. Episode two was Anthony Chafee. So I actually short-headed Anthony Chafee of all people to Mission Carnivore. So I went on with Larry, and we had a great chat. Turned out that we were both ex-rugby players. He was a great fan of rugby. We're both massive John Wayne fans. Both of us had a history of service, so we got on really well. My brother from another mother across the pond. So he asked me what I ate, and at the time I was eating better than I had been, but I was eating a lot of processed meats like the fricadelle I told you about with the canola oil in them, eating a lot of ham, eating a lot of sausages, and I was still had half a mind on the financial side of things. And it was summer. It was the very end of summer here in the UK, and the barbecue season was just coming to an end. Now, I love my burgers on the barbecue, but I also love my raw onion, my cucumber, my tomatoes, all the salad vegetables. So at that time, those were the staple vegetables for me, because we weren't really eating a lot of, the winter veg at the time. And, excuse me. And then Larry took it on the chin. I was still drinking quite heavily at the time. So I showed him what I was drinking. It did explain that I was drinking dry white wine and low carb beer because I was counting the carbs in the wines and the beers as well. Now, it clearly made him think. It clearly made him think deeply. I had quite a profound effect on Larry that day, because I would basically admitted the fact that I had massive success, but while not being good, clean carnivore. Now, Larry being Larry, when he decided to go carnivore, he crossed the Rubicon that same day and burnt his boat. He went from the sad diet straight into full-blown carnivore. Now, it clearly showed him that my approach was very successful, And the next morning he got up, he couldn't sleep that night. So the next morning he got up and he did a feedback video based on dogma in the carnivore community. And he said that basically, how can we be dogmatic about our behaviour or the way we eat? When yesterday I interviewed George Goodenough, my great friend from across the pond, and he said, how can I tell a man he was wrong when he's had such success? He said, George drinks far more than I do. He said he still eats onions, he still eats salad foods, and yet I can't really tell him he's wrong. He eats stuff I don't eat. But how can I tell him he's wrong when he's had such success? Now, I thought, Larry, you old dog, what you are doing is giving me a huge, great kick up the butt, but you're being very, very subtle and very, very kind about it. You are telling me that I am wrong. And I went away and it was my turn to think about that. And I thought, yeah, he's right. I am wrong. So I went away and I cut out all of the vegetables, all of the plant foods, and I went meat based only. I still carried on eating a lot of the processed foods, but to a certain extent I do now. I still eat chorizo and salami. But I cut out a lot of the cheaper processed meats and I started replacing it with superior stuff, fish and eggs and that sort of thing. And I quite a lot of cheese at the time as well. Less so now. So yeah, so he made me change my approach. Now it's interesting because about 4 weeks after I cut all the plants out, I went to a Turkish restaurant, a Mediterranean restaurant near to us called the Green Olive. And I like olives, and they are low carb, aren't they? So, they're not a problem. They're recognised as being one of the safer vegetables. Anyway, so I had a bowl of olives. Oh, Thomas, the effect on my microbiome that afternoon, which had spent 4 weeks changing themselves around. My family, I don't think, will ever forget that afternoon because, believe me, what came from me that hello, that's not my family. That's actually we need to save that one for a bit later on. Actually, Thomas, to be honest with you, that's my carnivore community here in the UK. So, Thomas, can you see? Yeah, okay, we'll
No, I
keep it
can
in the
see it.
corner.
That's no problem.
Yeah, but
I just want to show that
but
you
that
sent it to
will
me, so I want to make sure everybody sees.
that will come much later down the line. How are we doing? 32 minutes. We still now. That
Yeah,
will come.
no problem.
That will come very near the end of this story, actually, rather than the beginning. So yeah, so my family that day had been with me, and I say what emerged from my body that day followed me around the house, shall we speak? And then, what the hell happened to you? What the heck happened to you? I said, oh, it's the olives I ate. So sorry, everybody. So since that day, I have never consumed fibre again. I've got to be careful here because I've just eaten some fungi actually, which we'll come on to later. But certainly since that time, I have never ever had. Well, my flatulence, we're carnivores, we can talk about these things. My flatulence has gone down to about 10% of what it was at when I was eating vegetables, and I have never produced that sort of odour again in my life. And I'm sure that most of us who are actually fibre free have found the very similar thing.
Yeah.
So at this point, I learned the horrors of fibre. I was later to discover Lee Copus, the Kent carnivore, the man with the ostomy bag, and his story of how vegetables clearly have to go to the colon for fermentation because they went through his stomach and through his small intestine, only to emerge in the ostomy bag untouched by the stomach acid or by absorption in the small intestine. However, once he realized what he was doing wrong, he cut out all fruit and veg and went meat only. And now the only thing that appears in his ostomy bag is a colorless and odorless liquid, which proves that basically when you go meat only, you lower the pH of your stomach acid so that all meat is dissolved, and then the nutritious fluid that is left passes into your ileum, the small intestine anyway. Duodenum and ileum, I think, constitute the small intestine, and then it is absorbed by the enzymes. So all the nutrition is absorbed in the small intestine, which means that only the bits and pieces that's totally undigestible actually end up going to the colon for processing through as a stool at the end of the day, which is why nearly all of us in the carnivore community we actually had to visit the bathroom to sit down for fewer times every week. I average about 3.5 myself, and it's never a drama. It's always a quick and easy process, unlike sitting on there and straining for 20 minutes as I did before. So yeah, that's the horrors of fibre. So that was really, it was Larry who gave me the kick up the butt that I required to actually take this action, and that was in September of 23. He was my only friend in the carnivore community until October of 23, when I saw a Dave Mack with a young lady who will become quite famous, called Lauren Tucker.
Oh,
Absolutely, no, no, not who you're thinking of. She comes much later, believe me,
yeah.
Thomas. Yeah. Okay, so Lauren lives 28 miles from me. She is a young lady. She's 32, younger than my daughter, but she had this incredible story which she told to Dave Mack, and she did invite people to contact her. And I thought, well, she's only 28 miles up the road. So I got her email address and we swapped emails. And Lauren Tucker, who is going to be appearing as pretty much the poster girl for Healing Humanity, because she's very young and very beautiful. And she's a great friend of Kerry's, and she is the one of the stories in Healing Humanity.
Okay.
So Lauren became my second friend in the carnivore world. At the time, I was a bit dubious about the cult status of carnivore, so I never actually went to visit Lauren to begin with. I kind of kept her at arm's length because I was afraid that the cult image was, it might, I wasn't 100% sure that I wouldn't end up having to send loads and loads of money abroad to America, because obviously we had there's been several cults come out of America over the years. I think there was an incident in Waco or something quite famously, and I was very wary of sending money abroad or joining anything. In fact, for many years I haven't. I've only just recently joined Healing Humanity.life, and that is the first membership that I've actually joined. Up until then, I would buy merchandise because I got something for my money, which I was able to show, but I wasn't just giving money away. If you see what I mean.
Right.
So yeah, I kind of kept Lauren at arm's length, but what we did do is that she had a very tiny WhatsApp group with about 3 people in it, so she added me to that. So then I had a sort of small British community alongside Larry, and then a slightly bigger WhatsApp group of about 6 people became aware of us. It was run by a guy called Paul, UK Carnival guy, who was very enthusiastic at the time. He's kind of disappeared a bit now. So we merged the 2 groups. So then we had a WhatsApp group of about 10 people. So by this time, sort of towards the end of 23, I maybe had 11 carnivore friends out in the big wide world. Then I did my first Dave Mack before the end of 2023, and I told him my story. God, the sound was awful because I didn't really know what I was doing then. I didn't have this headset, and I did it on my phone because I didn't have this computer. But it was my next breakthrough interview. Then I did a couple of interviews with smaller channels over here in the UK, including Carl Day of the Primal Lifestyle. Carl has gone on to become, again, one of my strongest friends in the carnivore community, and was my co-conspirator in organising the Great British Meetup last year, more of which later. So we got into 2024. I got my next set of bloods in January of 2024. At that same surgery, I was supposed to have had my bloods in October 23, but they actually cancelled me an hour before I was supposed to have my bloods, and that was after I'd organised a day off, and I was furious. Anyway, so I went in January 24 because I rescheduled, and the nurse was, what a horrible woman, really, truly horrible. She said, why have you left it so long since September of 22 before you come out? I said, no, hang on a second. I said, I booked October the 8th last year. I said, you gave me 1 hour's notice that you couldn't do it. No apology. She said, oh, obviously we were too busy. It was like it was my fault for pestering them.
How dare you? Right.
Yeah, how dare you? So anyway, I tried to engage her with a conversation. By that time, I'd lost a further, I don't know how many pounds, and I was out of, I'd come out of type 2 diabetes. So she went through the motions. She didn't like me, and I didn't like her. I I bullied her into, I forced her into telling me what my previous scores were. And she noted the fact that I'd had a massive success. But was there a word of congratulation or encouragement? No. So at the end of the procedure, I said, "Oh, well, how do I get my results?" She said, "Oh, you'll have to go onto the National Health Service app." I said, "Well, how do I get that?" She said, "I don't know. Not my problem." She said, "My yeah."
Convenient.
So exactly, yeah. So I said, "Oh, go and see reception. They'll tell you how to do it." She said, "The only way that we will contact you now is if there's a problem." So I went back to the receptionist. I said, "I've been sent back here to get the NHS app." She said, "Oh, give me your photograph ID." I said, "Well, I'm not carrying photographic ID." "Oh, you need it for the NHS." I said, "Excuse me, but you have just sent me in to have a needle thrust into my arm on the basis of my date of birth and my address." "Yeah, but I need your photographic ID to set you up on the NHS app." She didn't. I could tell she just didn't want to do it, and she was just trying to rig it. It was just too inconvenient for her. So I said, "Madam, thank you so much for your time. This isn't going to happen." And I left. So I never actually got the results of that blood test officially. I did get them later, but only to be told that they were okay.
Oh, okay.
Now the most interesting thing, but I knew I was okay because I didn't hear from them about my HbA1c, about my triglycerides, or my weight or anything. But what did I hear from them about? Good old cholesterol.
Of course.
Yeah, exactly. So I got a text message from a doctor I'd never met, never heard of, and it said your cholesterol level is significantly raised at 7.1. Translate to about 293, I think, in USA terms. So at the high end of the 300s. So that gives you a ballpark figure of where I was. So he said, "I want to issue you with a cholesterol lowering medication." In other words, a statin. He was trying to sell me a statin. Quick history lesson on statins. They only came on the market in 1987. We are talking 2024 here. So really, we're talking fewer than 30 years that statins have been on the market.
Right.
Quick question for you, Thomas. How did the human race survive all those millions of years without statins? Because apparently we need statins to survive.
Yeah, it's beyond me that we're still existing.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, so you can imagine what I did. I simply ignored the text message. I did not give them the satisfaction of me telling them to get stuffed, basically. I just totally ignored the text message and never went back there. Now, interesting, a great news. This is the first time I've actually really told my full story because we're halfway through already, but we're halfway through my story,
Thank
which
you
is
for
great.
that.
That's no worries. So in June of
More excited than worried.
in June of 2024, I went to an Armed Forces Veterans Day, and as I was walking around, so a young lady, or not so young lady, but I suppose same age as me, so yeah, a young lady, approached me. She was dressed in a nurse's uniform. Her name was Terry Underwood, and she said, "Hello, you're a veteran." I said, looked down, and I said, "Yeah, I was wearing my veterans gear." She said, "Are you registered?" She said, "with a surgery." Now, I've missed out a bit here because in the April of that year, I was very dissatisfied with the surgery, the clinical practice that I was at. And my wife, Lainey, discovered that her clinic specialised in veterans' health. And they invited application for veterans. So when I met Terry, I'd just been told that my transfer was successful and that I was now going to go with East Key Medical Centre. I won't name the old medical centre because I soon forget about them. But I was now with East Key. Now, so I said, "Yes, I've just been registered with the East Key Medical Centre as a matter of interest, Terry." I said, "And they specialise in veterans' health." She said, "I know, because this was on a Saturday." She said, "As of Monday," she said, "I'm going to go in to give them 5 days training in veterans' health, the speciality of veterans' health." So she was very, very keen. So that, as you know, it is our duty, our evangelistic duty to make sure that everybody knows our story. So I had the classic before and after photographs. I showed that to Terry. I was able to give her my statistics, and she was like, "Wow, this is amazing." So she was very impressed. She actually gave me a lot more time. We probably spoke for about 40 minutes, I think, and she was just absolutely, blown away by my story. Now, the knock-on effect of this was that in October the 23rd of last year, 2024, she was hosting a veterans healthcare conference, and she invited me. I thought it was for all veterans, but in fact, it wasn't. It was for only healthcare professionals and people associated with that. I didn't know at the time. So when I turned up, I was representing East Key Medical Centre, but we have to rewind a month here because on September the 26th, I had my first my first test, if you like, with East Key Medical Centre, and I went in ready for war because of what I was doing, and also my experience from that horrible nurse back in January of 2024 over in the other unmentionable clinic.
Right.
So I had a healthcare assistant who was commissioned with giving me all the tests so that she could hand them on, and then a nurse would see me on October the 9th, which was 2 weeks later. So I walked into this lovely young lady called Vicky, expecting to have real pushback. So she had all my stuff, and she was very sympathetic. She really congratulated me on my weight loss, congratulated me on my the type 2 diabetes success, because it was through her that I learned that my results in January have been very successful. I can't remember the figures; they don't really count. And she says, "Oh, that's great! That's great. How do you do it?" And I said, "With low carb." I said, "I only eat meat. I'm carnivore." Expecting to have a pushback. She said, "Oh, that's magic." She said, "My son's a type 1 diabetic, so I'm very low carb." I was expecting the fight at this point. I didn't get it. She said, "Yeah, I'm very low carb. It's brilliant, isn't it?" Okay,
Wow.
it kind of deflated me. It took the aggression out of me, if you know what I mean. And
Right.
okay,
You're ready for the fight, basically.
exactly, yeah. Now this is something that you personally are going to find you can relate to, and B, it might be a bit difficult for you, Thomas. So warning, it's about toes. Okay. So she said, I have to do neuropathy tests on your toes.
Okay.
So she made me take my shoes and socks off, and she got this little thing, which is like a little needle, bent needle, and she had to tickle me with
Yeah.
this sort of bent needle.
To make sure you have a
And
feeling in your
yeah, to exactly make sure that I had feeling in my feet. Anyway, so I put my foot out, and she kind of leant over me, which was a mistake, over my foot. Because as soon as she touched it, I was so ticklish that I had a reflex action which sent my foot flying into the air. And she literally had to jump backwards to stop me from knocking her out with a kick, basically. It was a karate kick. And she just turned around to me and said, "Okay, then, Georgia, we can safely say you have no peripheral neuropathy."
No, if you could do that, yeah,
exactly, yeah.
you're good.
Yeah. So we had a good laugh about that. And then she said, "Okay, now I've now got to take your pulse from your ankle. To find out what your pulse is, your circulation is like in your foot." So anyway, she put this, it looked like a stethoscope. So she put the two things in, but it was an electronic stethoscope.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, again, she leant in, placed it on my pulse. And again, she took it off, leapt backwards. She said, "That's the most amazing full pulse I've ever heard whilst carrying out one of these tests." So yeah, she said, "We can safely say that you've got good circulation and no neuropathy in your feet." She said, "You haven't really got any problems." So, she wasn't a nurse, so she just said, "You're looking good." So on October the 9th, I went back and I went in with my appointment with Nurse Abby. And we sat down, and we actually, I've still got it here. I still keep it very close at hand. These are the results of that blood test. And with the small exception of something called serum urea level, whether anybody wants to comment, which is slightly over, everything was in the perfect range. Everything was absolutely in the perfect range. So she said, "George, I don't know what you've done," she said, "but you are the most spectacular success story that I have ever seen as a type 2 diabetes nurse." To be fair, she was only young, and she was only talking from her own experience. So she'd never met Papa Carnivore, for example.
Right.
But in her own experience, I was. And she said, "Just explain to me." So I said, "I'm carnivore." I said, "I only eat meat." I said, "I don't eat any fruit and vegetable." So she basically said, "That's great." She said, "Do what you're doing." So she went through this, and she came to bear in mind the fact I was still a heavy drinker at this time. I think you measure units the same. I was probably drinking about 70 units a week, 70 units a week in wine and beer. And she skipped over my liver function test. Now, I'll tell you what it was. Liver function test normal. So bilirubin level 16 should be between 5 and 21. Alkaline phosphatase 62 should be between 30 and 130. Serum ALT level 32, 0 to 50 should be. And serum albumin 46 should be between 35 and 50. So my liver function test was perfect. Now, one question that they are obliged to ask when you go back for these things is, how much alcohol do you drink? She didn't ask me. She never asked me. I said, Abby, I said, aren't you going to ask me about alcohol? She said, no. She said, you're clearly a non-drinker. And I said, Abby, no, I still drink 70 odd units a week. And she looked at she said, no, you can't be. You're joking, aren't you, George? I said, no,
Right.
I gave her the full sincere stare. And she said, whatever you're doing,
Wow.
whatever you're doing, it's working. So that was an incredible one. Now, we'll come to me giving up drinking later, but this kind of confirms my theory, which I've expounded to people like Dave Mack, that the alcohol has been arrested, tried. Children are now getting non-alcoholic fatty liver disease without alcohol. It's perfectly true that in the past, cirrhosis of liver and fatty liver, damaged liver, was associated with people who drank a lot of alcohol.
Right.
But remember what I told you at the beginning of this. I was drinking a lot, but I also had a high carbohydrate diet and was eating a lot of fruit. So the question is, historically, did those people who were drinking a lot, was it the alcohol that was damaging their liver, or was it what they were eating alongside the alcohol?
One of the most likely carbs, right?
Absolutely. So I'm kind of the living, bear in mind the fact that I was very cautious in my approach to what I drank. So I was down to very dry white wine, occasional white spirits, and the lowest lager beer that I could in carbohydrates that I could find on the market. So I did have a mindful approach to what I was drinking. Now, firstly, a quick disclaimer here. I'm not a doctor. This is just my own opinion. And secondly, the best route to optimal health is to give up the alcohol. Don't drink, don't touch alcohol. And I shall tell you why I found that out a bit later on. But that was the most interesting thing. So she basically said to me, what you're doing is great. And I said, aren't you going to give me the pushback about fiber? She said, how can I? She said, when you are reporting what you are reporting in the way you feel, and when I have the evidence in front of me, I can't tell you you're wrong. I said, well, she said, no. She said, I wish I could get you to talk to my failing type 2 diabetes patients about it, about your success story. I said, Abby, you can't, because if you do, if you invite me in, you will be struck off, because everything which we are talking about goes against what you have been taught and what the doctors want you to preach to your type 2 diabetes patients. She said, George, you're absolutely right. I cannot do that. She said, but whatever you're doing, just carry on doing it. She'll also announce that because that was my third perfect set of bloods in a row, I was now officially cured of type 2 diabetes. And as such, I haven't been invited back this year for my old man's health check, because I am no longer considered to be at risk of type 2 diabetes, which kind of speaks for itself.
Right.
So that was, okay. So that sets the scene for me going to this conference, which Terry Underwood has set up. She is, to give her a full title, she is a project manager for the Somerset as my county,
Right.
Armed Forces
In the England
Partnership.
part of it, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah, exactly. Yeah, not New Jersey. Yeah. But you're more than welcome. Send some veterans my way and tell, as long as you find them from Somerset County, they're perfectly entitled to come to the
not to be confused.
Somerset.
Right.
Exactly. But it'd be great to have a few veterans from Somerset County in New Jersey. Right. That would really make the day. So I went there, and my badge said East Key Medical Centre. And everybody else was representing a company or a health organisation, mental health, doctors, nurses, and they were all dealing with veterans health. And I suddenly realised I was the odd one out, because I was looking around for my fellow veterans who I know in Bridgewater, and nobody was there. So I went to Terry. I said, Terry, what am I doing here? I said, this is all professional. She said, oh, George, I just thought you'd like to come along. She said, I thought you might want to mingle and tell your story, wink, wink, because, of course, she could not give me the stage for the same reason Abby could not invite me to talk to diabetes patients. But Terry was so impressed with my story that she felt it would be beneficial if I was to be able to tell it. Now, I sat next to this doctor, a lovely guy, absolutely fabulously lovely guy called Dr. Nick. He was ex-Royal Navy, and he was a doctor in the Royal Navy, and he now had his own practice, or he was a doctor in a practice. So I engaged him in conversation, did the usual thing as I'd done with Terry, showed the before and after photographs, told him my story. He said, absolutely, old chap, that must be absolutely fantastic for you. He said, that must be Ozempic. I said, no, doctor, it's Carnival. He, what? What's Carnival? So I explained to him exactly what it was. Now, I had a document in my briefcase, and I said, have you ever heard of Ansel Keys? No, never heard of Ansel Keys. What are you talking about? So I said, oh, there's a document here which explains Ansel Keys and his role in the demonization of fat and cholesterol, and how it was a lie from the Seven Nations study, and how he disproved his own hypothesis with the Minnesota coronary experiment between 1968 and 73. And basically, the doctor was embarrassed because this construction worker knew more about the history of statins, cholesterol, and the demonization of saturated fat than he did. All he was doing was towing the company line and selling statins. He was clearly sheepish about it at the time. So I said, please take this document, Dr. Nick. I said, go and study it. And I also listed our own great doctors. I said, go and study those guys as well. He took it. I'll take it away, George, he said, but I won't be able to do anything with this, he said, because even if you're right, I won't be allowed to teach it because it goes against the standard of care.
Right.
And I'm very proud of what then popped into my head. I hadn't planned this, but I said, no, doctor, that is because you are contractually obliged to perpetrate the lie. Yeah, I'm sorry, what did you just say? And I said, you are contractually obliged to perpetrate the lie. Okay. And he sort of dismissed himself, didn't dismiss me for a change. He actually said, I'm awfully sorry, George, I've got to go and have a chat over there. Basically, he was totally embarrassed because he knew that I knew more about metabolic health than he did.
Right.
Haven't seen him again. Hope to see him on November the 4th this year when I've been invited back to that conference by Terry. More of which later. How are we doing for time? 57. Still got half an hour, Thomas. So I think we can just about wrap it up. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, just keep on going. About 10 minutes before we'll.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Okay, I'll aim for an hour and 20.
Yeah.
We're getting there, as you can tell, because we're up to.
We'll make sure that we make it in time for.
Exactly, we're up to absolutely.
I'm sure him and me want to go on there too. So
yeah, exactly. No worries. I mean, we can overrun the hour and a half if it will allow. But yeah, so that was a great result that I had from that conference of last year. During this time, I discovered eating raw thanks to my mate Carl Day, who'd interviewed on the Primal Lifestyle. He'd interviewed a guy called Jacob McAteer, an English raw, 100% raw carnivore, absolutely magnificent specimen of a human being. So Carl, back in the May of 24, said, George, I'm going to go raw carnivore based on what Jacob told me. And he actually caught me out because he was interviewing me on YouTube at the time. He said, will you join me? I said, no, Carl. I said, I'm doing really well I don't really fancy eating raw carnivore. But in June of that year, he went raw himself. And again, he made the mistake of going all in straight away, only raw. Within 4 days, he was struggling. Now, what I did to support him is that first week I bought 2 raw steaks, which I ate raw on separate days, and I enjoyed them. I found the texture to be superb, the flavour a bit bland. So I started adding mustard at that time. But then I doubled it up to 4 weeks, 4 steaks next week, then up to 8, then up to 10, until the point where if I was eating by myself without my wife, Lainey, I was only eating raw at work, for example. Lainey, it grosses her out, and she likes cooking, and she likes premium meat. So I still carried on eating cooked premium meat rare at the weekends and varied up the meat quite a lot. But my staple diet Monday to Friday was raw steak. And at that point, I then suddenly got another weight loss over the course of this last winter, 24 to 25. And eventually I think April of this year, I saw myself get down to 168 pounds which was my 17-year-old weight. So I actually got back to, at the age of 60, got back to my 17-year-old weight. Like I said, I've had no cause to be tested for type 2 diabetes ever since, on account of the fact that I'm no longer type 2 diabetic. So that was April of this year. In March of this year, this is the key moment that I think you think is going to come earlier. I was watching Dr. Kilt's in the morning, and there was this a lovely lady on there with an incredible stage 4 ovarian cancer story called Stephanie Taylor. And I commented on there, and I said, "This is George from the UK," because there are very few people. Oh, she said, "Oh, that George from the UK, that's interesting." So that was the first time that we met each other or became aware of each other. I went back to Lauren Tucker, and I said, "Lauren, have you met Stephanie?" She said, "Yeah, absolutely. I've got a telephone number." I said, "Would you mind putting her in contact with me?" So it was through Lauren who put me in contact with Steph. We very rapidly got Steph onto our WhatsApp group, and we became friends. And at that time, myself, Carl, and Lauren were organising the Great British Meetup. We needed a couple more people on the committee, so we straight away recruited Steph and also Lee Copus, the Kent Carnival.
Oh,
so straight away, Stephanie got involved with the committee work that we were doing, and then a key date in my life is June the 7th of this year, because I had, up until then, I had a bit of conflict of interest between my role in horse racing, where I'm a bloodstock agent part-time for a local stable, and carnival, because I find it hard to actually, and also I was working construction, so basically something had to give. So what I did is I decided to basically walk away from the horse racing temporarily, and go as actually Stephanie called it. She said 100% team carnival, which I did on June the 7th of this year. So in order to do that, I joined Facebook, which I hadn't been on before. Made a few mistakes to begin with, but I'm now using it as a platform, influencers platform. I'm writing a lot of magazine articles. I'm doing a series at the moment, which is based on local restaurants to me and how I deal with how I train to become carnival and carnival friendly. I'm having great success with that. Lots of very picturesque restaurants near me, so it makes good. So that's my story of Facebook anyway. I've now got 340 friends on Facebook, many of whom are carnival, the rest are army and horse racing, and a few
Yeah, it's a mixture.
construction as well. It's a mixture. But of course, I'm aiming at carnival, and I'm actually getting a few successes from the army, because there was one guy the other day said it's an amazing story, George. I think carnival might be beneficial for me. So he's talking about going carnival. So I kind of had a bit of influence there. So June the 7th, Facebook. I contacted. That was the day that I signed up for the Kilts Health Coaching course, which started on July the 1st. So I said, "Hey, Steph," I said, "I've joined the Kilts Health Coaching course. It's ridiculously cheap at $400. I said, "Do you fancy it?" She said, "I'll tell you what, I'll go and speak to Nikki," her sister. And they, by the end of that day, they came back to me and said, Steph came back to me and said, I didn't know Nikki this time. And Steph said, "Yeah, we joined up, George, so we'll be in the class with you on from July the 1st onwards." So, and at that time, myself and John Laspina, the carnival teacher, now carnival teacher Alpha, he said, "George, I want to do a follow-up interview with you." And we kind of discussing it. And I said, "John, you used to have something called Wednesday night school, but you let that slip." I said, "Why don't we sort of revive that?" Because he'd actually taken over from Carnival Soldiers Wednesday night slot, which was called Hump Day Meetup, but he called it Wednesday Night School with John Espina. And we came up with the idea of Sunday School. Obviously, Sunday School is a good play on words, so we called it Sunday School Carnival. And there was only the two of us at the time. I'm not sure if Steph knows this, but I actually put I said, "I need a guest for this week." So I went to Alex Cannon, more of whom later, Lee Copus, Sarah Wright, Lauren, all were busy. So I thought, "Oh, what about Steph?" So I invited Steph. She said, "Oh, I'll be honoured to, George." So our very first guest on Sunday School Carnival was Stephanie. And she just she stole the show. There's no question about that. But for a couple of weeks afterwards, we basically carried on, just me and John. Steph used to appear in the chat. We had a format of having two people at a time, which we decided eventually wasn't fair on them or us. And then somehow or other, Steph kind of came on again or something, and suddenly, I can't remember exactly how it happened, but she suddenly became the Sunday School secretary. So then she became a key part of the team. And she actually has, for her own channel, which is Happy Sexy Health, she has a professional StreamYard. So she became our StreamYard manager. And basically, I went out and got all the guests. John kind of ran out of guests at his end. So I, through you guys and the Kilts Mighty Tribe, and through a couple of other contacts I made over in the USA, I have good access to guests. So we're booked up now until the end of December. We will. You've been on already, Thomas, so there's no point in asking you again. But I've got another couple of very excellent people. I know Amy, rocking coach. Amy's coming on. Really looking forward to that. I've got Dr. Kilts coming on November the 23rd, which is obviously very good. And I'm just dancing with Coach Lisa Pickard, even as we speak at the moment. And she has agreed to come on, but we just haven't actually haven't set a date yet. Exactly. So yeah, we got some great influencers coming on. I think we got Nikki from Miss Laughlot coming on this this Sunday, which will be nice. Then we got Kimberly Morrow coming up. Amy, as I say,
I have her coming on in a few weeks. So
yeah, exactly. So we're looking really good. Jonathan Griffiths, Carnival Muscle from the UK, he's coming on. Yeah. So anyway, so Stephanie suddenly became an integral part of Sunday School Carnival. She was an integral part of the Great British Meetup. And what was the other one? Oh, of course, on the Kilt Self. So basically, Stephanie and I suddenly found ourselves on a very, very similar journey. So yeah, that's a great story. And Steph actually only lives 55 miles away from me. So we went through the Great British Meetup together. She lives an hour away from me. And the story of that has been told many times. There are an awful lot of photographs from the Great British Meetup. You can find them on my Facebook, for example. Go back and find that all it was on August 2nd. Somewhere down the line we'll probably dig them out again and have another look at them. But I also, off the back of that, I'm a proponent of the mini meetup. If you can't make it to a big meetup, go and grab your nearest carnival neighbour and drag them down the park with a packet of pork scratchings, pork rinds, and you've got a meetup, haven't you? Really, because there's two carnivals in the same place.
Right.
So I'm a great fan of the mini meetup now. Yeah, exactly. So in the beginning of September of this year, I think I met up with my great friend Ziggy and her husband Steve. Ziggy is Carnival Camper, and we've done a couple of hilarious walk and talks together up in the hills. She's a very good film editor. Go and find her on Carnival Camper. Our last one was our best one. And her husband Steve was diagnosed with stage 4 terminal liver cancer in January 2024. Ziggy put out a heartfelt, emotional tribute to him, saying that he would be dead within a few months. Anyway, I'm happy to report on the beginning of September of 2025. We met up in a park, went and played all together on the children's swings. He's a 67-year-old stage 4 terminal liver cancer sufferer, and he was playing like a child on the swings. And I put a Facebook about that. So yeah, that's another story, not quite as well known as some of the other ones out there, including Steph's, but it's a heartwarming story nonetheless. Right. However, on the September the 20th of this year, Steph and myself decided to organise a mini meetup based over in her neck of the woods, which is Wales, which is a separate country to England, but it is linked by a bridge.
Yep.
So
my grandfather was Welsh.
Yeah, absolutely. So on September the 20th of this year, myself and Lainey crossed the bridge into the foreign country that is Wales. You don't need a visa over here nor a passport. No. And we went to a fantastic hotel called the Priory, which which char grills its fantastic steaks in your vision. Now, at this point, Thomas, you might want to put that photograph up again if it's still still handy. Yeah.
All right. So this is the photograph, everybody. Let's give it a spotlight there.
Okay, so that is the Priory Hotel that night. This is a mixed bag of people because it's a crossover between horse racing and carnivore. So just on the right is the first one is a lady called Nadine, who is the fiance actually of the gentleman who's leaning over my shoulder, Sam. He's very much in the horse racing world, a mad Irishman who loves his Guinness and his wine. So they were drinking wine that night. They're not carnivore. Sat next to Nadine is Stephanie Taylor, who I'm sure you recognise.
Yeah.
Stephanie's quite striking. Sat next to her is Tim Rendell, who was at the Great British Meetup and who is Welsh himself, so it was convenient for him to get there. He's affectionately known as Topless Tim because on the day of the meetup in the summer, he spent the whole time without anything on outside, but without wearing anything on his top. Thankfully, that night he did actually wear a t-shirt. It was supposed to be a bit more formal than that, but he turned out very smart, so he was okay. So just behind him, you will see a lady. Her name is Celia Saunders. Now, she is a crossover between the horse racing and the carnivore world. Because I run two separate WhatsApp groups, one for horse racing, one for carnivore, and she's in both, I think. But she came because she lives very near Steph. Now, her story is amazing because she has been riding thoroughbred horses all her life. She loves riding. At the age of 61, her arthritis and various other conditions were so bad that she had to give up riding. Celia is now 72. And since going carnivore, she is literally back in the saddle every day. She is riding out again. And that is, she puts down entirely to carnivore. So there's a nice little crossover there between carnivore and thoroughbred racing because now Celia is riding her thoroughbreds every day at the age of 72. Whereas at the age of 61, she had to retire from it. So big shout out to Celia. She might watch this if I send it to her back. She's very, very shy and won't tell her own story, but she loves it when I tell her story because she likes it to be known. And as you can see, there's me sat next to Celia with my bald head because I didn't wear my cap that night. I completely forgot to. It's rude to wear a cap at the table anyway. Leaning over me, as I say, is Sam, the mad Irishman. And then next to Sam is my lovely wife, my beautiful wife, Lainey, who was there that night as well. So that night we had the most amazing steaks. So I had a 10 ounce, I think, or 12 ounce ribeye off the char grill. They were quite okay about me having no sides with it whatsoever. So that was a very successful carnivore mini meetup. What a night. It was great. It was great to see Steph again. Because obviously, even though we work together quite a lot, we don't get to physically see each other quite that much. It was the second time we've actually met up.
It's a total different experience. Yeah.
It's a totally different experience. Yeah, it really is. So it was absolutely fabulous. Oh, I forgot to tell you about the time I first met Steph because she stayed in my local hotel in Bridgewater the night before the meetup, and she brought Nikki with her. Now, I'd never met Nikki, and I knew that she had a younger sister called Nikki who didn't seem to do a lot on YouTube. So I had assumed that she was kind of living in Steph's shadow. And I had mistakenly assumed that she was the quiet one. So anyway, when I greeted Steph, it was a lovely sort of gentle hug, if you like, and hi, Steph, lovely to meet you. Next thing I knew, Steph got pushed out of the way, and I got a hug off Nikki. Now, Nikki is carnivore, and she's been training for something called DECA, I think. So she's been in the gym. And believe me, getting a hug off Nikki was like getting a hug off a she-bear. She doesn't know her own strength. So far from being the quiet, shy, retiring younger sister, she just lets Steph take care of the YouTube while she takes care of the administration of their various businesses. So yeah, I was a bit surprised that Nikki was not the quiet, shy, retiring type, and she was a magnificent addition to that weekend. And all of us had such great fun. The Steph and Nikki are equally as fun together. Unfortunately, Nikki wasn't able to make it that night because she was busy. But she's absolutely marvellous. She's now on the committee as well for next year's Great British Meetup. A massive addition. So we've got the Taylor sisters. Sounds like an act, doesn't it? In fact, actually, if you go on YouTube and look up their recent holiday in Mallorca, they did a few numbers. They didn't call themselves the Taylor sisters. I think they might call themselves I can't remember, the Carnival Carry On. I can't remember, but they did a few songs. Yeah, if anybody's got Stephanie on YouTube, go and look her up because it was absolutely hilarious. Yeah. But I think the Taylor sisters, maybe the Taylor Carnival sisters would be a good name for their double act.
Yeah.
Anyway, brings us up to September.
Group, yeah.
brings up to September the 20th of this year. we've been in contact. Stephanie and Nikki went across to visit Lauren and her intolerant food testing recently. So that was good. Another good little crossover there. Lauren lives 1 hour from me in one direction, and the sisters live an hour of me from the other direction. My friend Ziggy lives half an hour away, so I'm quite well off for carnivals around here. So yeah, we're very much looking forward to the Great British Meetup next year. And do you know, Thomas? I think that actually brings us up to date. It brings us up to now.
Yeah, you are actually pretty good. Your story is really amazing, George.
Yeah.
And Sandy did ask a question. The thing it's actually up there now. I already know what the answer is, but I don't know if you want to answer it. Of what time
Ab-
Sunday school carnivore is?
Absolutely. 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is what, 12 p.m. Central Time.
Well, yeah, Central's 1 hour
11,
for
yeah,
us.
11 Mountain Daylight Time, which is Wyoming, because I've been to Wyoming.
That's too
Uh,
much
and
math.
and it's so right, and it's 10 a.m. Pacific Central Time, because my great friend Dawn Bahula, Life After 60 Wrestling Witch Face, she came on to Sunday School Carnival. She's one of my carnival success stories. I actually coached her through her first 90-day boot camp, and she's the reason I'm here is because of her, because she said you are such a good talker and such a good coach. She said you want to go coaching. And she said, you want to get a YouTube channel. So she actually bullied me into starting a YouTube channel, and she bullied me into considering going coaching. So yeah, I did her a favor by helping her come through the first 90 days of carnival, and she's amazing. I'll say Life After 60 with Resting Witch Face. Go and find her, because she doesn't do a lot of carnival content now, but she doesn't need to, because she's got such energy that what she does is Life After 60,
Yeah,
and
just
it's
live your
her
life. Just live your life.
it's the adventures of Dawn the carnival, basically. She lost her job. She's now driving Uber, doing Uber deliveries, and she tells funny stories about her life. But she always credits it to carnival, and
Right.
just occasionally she'll say, "And I owe it all to my little brother." She calls me a little brother, George. Actually, I'll tell you the story of how I met her. Back in October of last year, she put on a clickbait thing, "Why I Hate Carnivals," on YouTube. Hate was in capital letters. So I went into that video prepared for a fight. I was like Jesse, Wild Bill Hickok, or Jesse James, walking into a saloon with a Colt Peacemaker on my hip, ready for a gunfight.
Right.
Where I met anyway. So in that saloon, I met Dawn, and first thing Dawn said, "I don't hate carnivores. I'm just jealous of carnivores." She said, I hate them because I ain't them." And basically, it was an appeal to the carnival community to come and help her.
Uh,
So I'm a sucker for a damsel in distress. So I went in ready for a gunfight, and I came out like Wild Bill Hickok with Calamity Jane on my arm. She was my new sister. I put a virtual arm around her at 5,500 miles different distance, and I talked her through her first 90 days, first 3 months of carnival. She made some horrendous mistakes because she wanted some quick results, and she went on sardine fast. I was, Dawn, that's not the way to do it. Trust the process. But she got through it. Got her first Dave Mac. I've watched her subscribers go from 800, maybe even less than that, to 5,500 now. As I said, she's gone away. This brilliant concept of going away from just being carnival, but showing how lively what life is like when you are carnivore. And she tells funny stories. She goes camping with her kids. She goes camping. She did a bit of winter camping herself out in her own backyard last year, and that was hilarious because it was like showed her tucked up in the, and then it's like, how do you live on retirement? What's it like losing your job after 60? So it's a lot of advice stuff and that sort of thing. So it's got a much broader appeal than just carnival, but she always credits carnival with her energy. Anyway, so yeah, where were we? I think
yeah.
that's
Yeah.
I've
No. I
gone off
mean,
on a
I
tangent
know
again.
we need to start wrapping up.
Yeah,
Because and you have a good reason why I mean, healing humanity is one
yeah.
of
We
our
saw,
ways.
but no immediate.
So I just want to go through a couple things.
Absolutely, yeah. Carry on. I'm enjoying
So
myself.
I just wanted to thank everybody for coming on today. So we I know he started off with just one or two people, but we ended up with quite a lot. And
Ah, brilliant. Okay. Yeah, sorry, I've been so focused. I haven't actually been even looking at chat, so I
yeah,
haven't had a
yeah.
chance
I
to
mean,
say hello to
Sammy's
everybody.
here,
Yeah.
Jemit's here, Josephine's here.
Oh, right. Okay.
Um, Let me see if I can scroll up. Of course, we know Lewis is here because he's been kind of our backbone this whole time.
That's very true. Yes.
Juliet's here.
Oh, Juliet, of course. Yeah.
Uh, Joe's Sleep and Slim Down is here.
Ah, that is Joe Archer from Nottingham.
Joan Archer, yeah.
Joe Archer. Yeah,
Joe Archer.
she's the girl that I met on Cindy
Yeah.
Demanche a
He's
few weeks
actually going to
ago.
be on my channel too. And
Yeah, and she's coming on to Carnival Sunday School.
Kat
Renamed it.
Herman.
She has a fantastic story, this Joe, which I won't do a spoil, but it's unusual. Kat's here as well. Yeah, Kat's Kat's come on with us. I think on Sunday
And I
School
think
Carnival.
I saw Coach Amy is here.
Yeah, good old Coach Amy. Yeah, absolutely.
Donna,
She's
Donna Ray
absolutely
is here.
yeah.
Ivy is
yeah,
here
Dora,
from
yeah.
WE Net.
Mm.
Lambs is here.
All the usual suspects, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great to know that you guys are supporting us. It
So
really
many
is.
people are here. You know, so two
Oh,
things.
hey,
Rick,
did you? I was
unless
going to say,
Rick is here.
have you mentioned Rick? How can you possibly have Rick in
Yeah,
the?
I know. Here, that's
that-
your thing. This is my thing.
Exactly. I've got to get me duck right. I can't get me duck right.
I got
Where's he gone? There he goes.
a duck running iguana.
Yeah, I can't. Well, there's the camera.
Well,
That's the reason why. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, what I wanted to mention is, I saw a couple of mentions in here from Jemmet and probably a couple other people. I'm having really great guests, and they are right, you included. I mean,
Thank you, Thomas.
I mean, Stephanie
even
was
me.
a wonderful guest. I mean. But the thing is, it perplexes me a little bit because and Aaron Fallon is here. Hey, Aaron.
Oh, hi, Aaron. Yeah.
Now I don't know if they're all still here or not, but they were earlier in the thing. It sort of perplexes me a little bit because like if you want to be on my show, or if you know anybody that you think would be a good story, let them know and let them email me, or let me know through you, and I'll email them. I just need to know their email address so I can invite.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But the thing is, the most of the people that
let's
we're
fill in the
inviting
space, people.
Sunday,
let's fill in the space. Yeah.
but you and I move in virtually the same circles, Thomas. So,
well, not for you. I'm talking about the people in the chat.
Just in general.
Yeah. If you too, but it's more of like a, like, hey, if you know somebody, let me know, or let them know. Hey, there's a guy that's interviewing people. Give them an email saying, "Hey, I'm interested in coming on, and let's set a date."
Right. Okay, Thomas. Do you mind if I tell the viewers a funny story?
Of course.
About you interviewing Steph a week ago today. She filled this slot a week ago.
Right.
Now, as everybody knows, myself in terms of Carnival, and it is only in Carnival because Lady and myself are very happily married. Steph and myself are virtually inseparable. We're on the same journey. So last week you interviewed Steph. Right. For about 2 hours, in fact, I think it was, or thereabouts. You took on for as long as you could.
It was just about 2 hours, yeah.
And you did the shout out to everybody, and she said, and you said to her, he said, there's one name missing. There is one glaring absentee. And she said, oh, you must be talking about George. He said, yeah. He said, George never misses a live where you are. He said, what's going on? What's happening?
Well, it's true.
Yeah. And Steph went, oh, perhaps he's doing something else. Maybe he's doing it live himself. Now, Steph actually was aware of what I was doing that night because just the day before, she taught me how to set up a recording on StreamYard. So she knew exactly what I was doing that night. So one of two things. Either she wanted not to spoil my thunder, or she just genuinely forgotten that I was in fact interviewing Dr. Kiltz at the same time as you were interviewing Steph live.
That's huge.
Exactly. Yeah. But I just found it absolutely amusing that you two were sat there saying, "George isn't here. Where's George? What's George doing?"
And I didn't know until I saw it. I was like, "Okay, well now I know where he was at."
Exactly. Yeah. So I got Dr. Kiltz. I recorded it and I was able to upload it the next day because I had an absolute panic on because I had the recording safe on StreamYard, but I had not a clue how to upload it. And the next day, I had to appeal to Steph, who's very, very busy at the moment. But bless her, she took an hour out of her day and she produces excellent 8 minute video. But we know that 8 minutes of video takes a lot of editing.
Yeah.
And it was a step by step, literally idiot's guide, because I'm an idiot when it comes to techno. She actually did it, sort of showed me how to upload a video onto YouTube from StreamYard. So again, another huge thanks, big shout out to Steph for that,
Yes.
because she's just been absolutely fabulous with me. She really has. Very, very patient. The joke between her is when she first started, she said, "Right now, left click on that." And I said, "Steph, what does left click mean?" She said, "Right, okay, you really don't know what a computer is, do you, George?" So she's had to actually teach me from complete scratch. And thanks to her, I can now get on Zoom. I can now get on StreamYard. I can now record interviews. I can upload interviews. Next stage is create thumbnails and to do editing. But hey, one thing at a time, mate. So I've come on a long way. So yeah, yeah. So that's for that little funny story about the "Where's George"
Yeah.
story.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's cool that you told it because it just came from Yeah. So okay, so my God, like I always get amazed by every interview I do because they're just always so fascinating. My next interview is supposed to be. I have to double check and confirm, but cross your fingers. But it should be Cindy DeMonchi. So
oh
we're
yeah,
going.
Cindy Marchand.
Yeah, so we're going to. I just have to confirm with her.
Yeah,
So Cindy, if
I
you're
don't know.
here in the
Yeah,
background, confirm it. Just kidding.
yeah, I
But,
don't know if Thomas. I don't know if you know, but the name Dimanche is French. I speak French,
okay.
so
Yeah,
it's probably not.
it looks French. It looks
It's probably Dimanche rather than
Mon-
Dimanche. Yeah,
okay.
manche actually means sleeve in French,
Oh, really?
and it's also the name of the what the French call the bit of water which separates Britain from France. It's called La Manche, which means the
Wow.
sleeve. It may be that Cindy's decided to go down the more English route of Demonche, but I would always call her Cindy Demonche.
Right.
So
Oh,
but she'll tell you, I'm sure.
hopefully, yeah. Hopefully, she'll be
Yeah,
able to tell us on which will be on Saturday. I'm going to make a thumbnail so you guys will have a better idea. I'm actually overdue on the thumbnail because I'm still learning the new computer, so I do want it in
yeah,
time. So,
yeah.
all right. So we have 3 minutes, so we might as well just. I mean, there is such thing. We kind of like want to give George a reason to come back. So. Uh, and
No, it's
also
all right.
I don't I've never really met her, but if your wife ever wants to come on or anything like that and tell a little bit about herself, she's more than welcome.
She did.
She has to,
She
but she's
actually
more than
did
welcome.
what right. She did one interview with Alia English, our
Yeah.
young friend Alia, and she
Oh,
was
the
so
little yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I did an interview with her. I haven't
yeah.
actually been on her channel yet.
But she was Lainey was so traumatized by that she said that she wouldn't do any more interviews. However, she did take over Sunday School Carnivore or Carnivore Sunday School on Sunday because our daughter is showing. Sorry, wrong. Our granddaughter, 6-year-old granddaughter, is showing real signs of gluten intolerance and also symptoms of EDS, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome.
Right.
And we had Angela Mullins on Sunday night, who has EDS. So Lainey came in and basically took over my seat and ran the situation of Indy Past.
Yep. Angela's
Uh,
actually my Saturday guest. That
yeah,
just
exactly. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, she was actually. That's
wonderful woman. Yeah.
absolutely. Coach Lisa was in the crowd as well that night, so she was very helpful. So yeah, so Lainey actually when the motivation was right, when she wanted an answer on behalf of her granddaughter, yeah, she wasn't at all camera shy, but she doesn't like getting interviews, so I can't really blame
Well, like I said, I don't I believe in just doing the invite, but if like whenever you feel it, just give me a text or an
her. Yeah,
email.
exactly.
Just be like, hey, you know what? I've had so many people. Like one of my guests I had was Lexi. Lexi,
Yeah, they see. Yeah.
and she was my favorite one. She's not to be mean, but she's just such a wonderful person, such a wonderful spirit. And
Yeah.
we,
I don't really know Lexa that well, but we do move in the same circles, and I know she's had a few difficulties recently, and we'll,
excuse me, guys.
you know, we all wish
That
her
was coming. um,
we all wish her a successful return
yeah,
to full
and the
carnival
thing is,
role.
she had a hard time. Like, she didn't know if she wanted to be on. She was like back and forth
Yeah.
in the beginning, and I'm glad that she decided to come on. But
Yeah, exactly. It's I see
so
Gemma's asked me to come back, please. But Gemma, I'll be around. But you probably what we do on within our class is we kind of swap and change. It's a bit like partner swapping, I suppose you might say. So you will find me on Sunday School Carnival, and I also go on with Club Carnival on Sunday nights as well with Nikki. She's been very busy talking to me about how she wants to develop that one. So yeah, I will be around quite a lot. I will be doing interviews on my own channel fairly more commonly in the not too distant future. I've got a couple lined up. One of whom is Dawn, the lady from California, and another of whom is Tyler McCann, who comes from Wyoming, where I spent. That's actually one little chapter I did miss out tonight, but I spent 4 days with him in Wyoming at the end of August. I'll be going back there next year for the beef roundup, and we will be giving several lead up interviews towards next August in Wyoming and the beef roundup.
okay.
And I'm sure I can get people like the
Oh,
lovely
yeah.
Angela Lera, Angela Christine on. I've got a very, as I say, like we go back to August 23. I had a community of one, Larry Allhands. Now I have a community of maybe 200 people around the world who are carnival from Queensland, DC rebuilding over in Queensland, East Australia, right the way through to Southern California. Angela Lero down in LA, and then up in the mountains above her, Dawn of Life After 60. So, yeah, we are worldwide now, folks. We are
Wow.
winning this battle one by
We
one,
we are so
uh,
busy, aren't we?
and we are making progress all the time.
Yeah.
Even those who don't want to go carnivore in my circle of people I work with, they're much more mindful now of carbohydrates. They do stop and think before they shove a cream cake in their mouth and that sort of thing. They do think it's risk versus reward. Oh, that's really nice. Oh, yeah, I can probably live without it.
Yeah.
So
Do I
those,
really need this?
yeah,
Like,
exactly, yeah.
yeah.
So even those who know me who don't want to go carnival, they do stop and think, "Oh, George probably wouldn't eat this." So so I have had a bit of. We're
A
winning.
bit of an influence. Right?
Yeah, we are winning. We are winning because everybody, I think people in general are starting to. They're starting to actually become aware because we had a really interesting report this evening over here in the UK, financial report, and apparently the cost of fast food such as McDonald's and is going to go up a lot next year. Now I'm wondering, is that because really the ingredients have gone up, or is it simply that people aren't using them as much as they used to?
Mm.
Maybe they're choosing to eat at home more. For example, tonight I had a box of chicken thighs, 4 chicken thighs, which I heated up in butter, almost like heart attack chicken. Hello, Rick. Um, uh, and uh, and that they cost £2.75 from either Iceland, which is a little store, or Aldi, I can't remember. But that's kind of a replacement for Kentucky Fried Chicken. 4 chicken thighs of that quality in KFC would have probably been about. I'll use English pounds, about £7 English or £5 English at least. They cost me £2.75, which is about £3.50 for 4 big chicken thighs. So with butter. So they're better with butter. That's a good,
Better,
that's a
better with butter.
good, that's a good saying, isn't
BB,
it?
better with butter.
Exactly. Instead of being in breadcrumbs. And secondly, they're a lot cheaper and they're quicker as well because you haven't got to phone the order in. We haven't got to walk up to the Kentucky Fried Chicken to go and get them. So I think people are beginning to realise that they don't have, that maybe the fast food fad, and has been a fad. I know you guys have had McDonald's around for a lot longer, but ours first one came in 1974 over here. So it's only just over, 50 years old? Yeah, 51
Yeah.
years.
Well,
So that
yeah,
is a fad diet.
1974
What
was.
we are doing, they want to call a fad diet, but what we are doing is the diet of millennia, of millions of years. So, which is a fad diet here, folks? McDonald's since 1951, or us since the dawn of time. I know which is the truth.
Yeah. So on that note, So just really quickly, thank you, Jemmet, for the bless you. I appreciate that. And and
Oh, so quick. There's a question. Yes, Lainey is English.
oh
She
yeah,
also, yeah, she was born in the county of Somerset, a bit further north from here, very near the city of Bath. But yes, she's a Somerset girl herself.
yeah. Oh, God, I'm always amazed by the guests I have on here. So George, thank you again for being here.
My
I
pleasure, as
appreciate
always.
it. Yeah. So we're gonna wrap things up. Is there
Am I
anybody?
going to am I going to see you in 25 minutes over on the Zoom?
Yeah, most likely. You'll
Oh,
see
oh
me.
yeah, yeah.
It's
And
just gonna
again,
be over.
a big thank you to Lewis as well for sitting
Yeah.
there patiently. And
And that's another thing I
listen,
want to. Lewis, you are amazing. Thank you very much for helping me out. Thank you.
thanks, Lewis.
Thank you. All right. So, as we all say, live, love, heal.
Absolutely. And can I just say that we'll stay on for the after show party when we get the beer and the chips out. Oh.
Lewis, are you coming? And for God's sakes, people,